Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here. I was in fact talking to both of them and before the session, and whatever they were talking to me, it was completely alien, the language that they were talking. So I said, I'm going to keep it simple and I'm going to keep it to a layman's language. If I could just, ask both of you to introduce and tell us what exactly is it that you do. If you could just keep it brief so that our audience understands what is it that you're actually doing, both of you.
Thank you. So, my pleasure being here. At IIT Bombay, I spearhead the Bharatjan initiative, which is funded by the Department of Science and Technology through the NMICPS program. It's actually funded through a Section 8 company, and it has 7 academic partners. So it's a very unique model in the world. Probably Sea Lion from Singapore comes very close to it. The idea here is bring R and D together for Gen AI, for building foundational models from scratch, right? There was a lot of talk about the importance of building Bharatiya models from the first byte to the last byte. We built a whole bunch of models, Param, Adanta, Suktam, Shrutam, Patram, all on open source. We have IIT Madras, IIT Kanpur, IIM Indore, IIT Hyderabad, IIIT Hyderabad and IIT Mandi, while IIT Bombay is leading it. So it's a very unique model. Now, the good thing we have also done is not only engage 70 plus research talent within the campus, within these campuses, but also brought in 40 plus cutting edge engineers from all around the world.
Okay.
So this is actually drawing back talent and it's creating that strong ecosystem. See, I think the legacy we leave behind, there may be few models we release, but the 1,000 paths of failure are as important to learn. And that is the ecosystem we are actually building.
What about you, Swami? What do you do?
Great. Thank you. Thank you again for inviting us. So what we do at Smartail, so I'm the CEO of Smartail, we grade the handwritten descriptive answers of students using artificial intelligence. We are about 6 years old right now. We work with about 100 plus schools all across the country. We also work with schools in India, Dubai, Singapore, and the UK as well. So the challenge of assessments is pretty great because all of us who have studied schools will think it's one of the easiest jobs to do. On the contrary, it's one of the most challenging jobs to do. And assessments only produce, say, a mark sheet or a number, which is not enough in today's world. So what we are trying to solve is finding those learning gaps, giving it back to the educators so that they can work on a stronger remedial program, and then help learn better. So that's what we do at Smartail.
Swami, in fact, you're talking about school and education. I want to ask you, is AI really going to, this is a basic question I have, is AI actually going to replace teachers?
No, definitely not. I don't think that is again possible, but it is going to augment teachers to a larger extent. If you really see, there is an era which is pre-COVID and post-COVID because COVID is now probably 4 years old and we tend to forget what happened during COVID. So suddenly we were all pushed into a zone of where, okay, now all the schools have to be digital. So when we started, we were a pre-COVID company and a pre-ChatGPT company, to be precisely put there in that zone, right? So we were thinking it's going to take 10 years for the schools to catch up to be digital, but it happened overnight because of COVID. Now, what has happened or how things are...
We do work a lot at Bharatjan with the defense forces, but also with education. It's very natural for us. Professor Kamakoti, who's one of our consortium members, for him, education was a big drive in setting up this entire Bharat, being a part of Bharatjan. The moment we start co-creating, I think that's a very important word. We are also building that trust by design. One of my biggest engagements with the education sector was a very large NGO, the largest educational NGO in the country. And we actually built a digital storyboarding platform with them called Lokavidya long back, so that we could capture the artisan's knowledge and bring in AI when AI was still nascent stages. What was interesting is when we were trying to render the modules, the teaching modules across multiple Indian languages, we were told by the artisans, sir, there's no need to render the speech as it is in another language. Back then, okay, now things have advanced. Just give captions. Samajh lenge hum.
Okay.
Now this co-creation actually eased a lot of our anxiety, right?
Okay.
And it made it possible to do digital storyboarding, make it more modular. So co-creation is actually very important. I would say it's not just for education, across the globe. We have to leverage the fact that India is a use case capital to make it an IP capital. We have to generate IP. We cannot be only doing solutions. That's where co-creation has to go deeper through engagement like this, where we also have academicians playing a critical role
So
in generating IP.
you mean to say that co-creation can probably bring in the authenticity? Is that what he means?
Yes.
Actually, Swami, I want to ask you.
I want to chime in here.
Yeah.
Probably this is something I'll add on our experience in terms of the product that we went in. So when we went and spoke to the teachers and said, this is a tool that can grade the answer papers right now. And then the teacher looked at me and said, I've been grading answer papers for 40 years. And who the heck are you to come into my classroom and say you can now start grading these answer papers? Now, we have to tell her, no, this will correct as well as you, or probably look at this as a slave to you so that you can keep feeding it input. So what we literally did for the first couple of years is we will grade the answer papers. We'll wait for the teacher to grade the answer papers. We will sit down, compare the marks, and then we will go back to saying, okay, these are the differences in where we found huge amount of differences, say 1 mark difference or 2 mark difference, or the reason why we have done this is something which is unknown. So we had to go in there, capture the data, and then showcase to her saying, see, we have done this properly here. Because when, as a human, you are setting and correcting, say, 40 papers, 80 marks, it takes, if you do it properly, it takes around 8 hours. It's not a very simple task to do. And the versatility actually kicks in, and you will not be able to grade it as efficiently as you did in the first paper. And you don't have a time. You have to submit back the results in the next couple of days, right? So now what we did is we started doing this exercise slowly, and when we go and implement deep grade in our in any of the schools today, the first 2 tests is always a challenge because they have a doubt. Users, the teachers as such, will it really give as good as me? Because there is no human element there. I do not know the student. I don't know this is Ram or this is Sham. I don't know him at all. And I am just looking at the answer. I'm just looking at the rubric. I'm looking at the answer key, and then I'm giving a mark. Whereas the teacher also knows who's this kid. Yeah. So we also saw
Maybe
a lot of unconscious
eliminate
bias.
the biases that the teacher.
Yeah, we also saw a lot of unconscious bias because there are some kids who will always get top rank, and then there are some kids who will always get in the bottom rank. So when we compared a couple of answers, and then we said both of them wrote exactly the same. The one got 2 and another one got 1.5. And when we took it to the teacher, so she literally blasted us. But nevertheless, right? So this is an unconscious bias that actually kicks in. The only way to get user conformance is that you have to go to them and you have to keep showing evidence to them. And then at one point in time now, the teachers don't even look at what AI has graded. It directly goes to the students. We have created a mechanism where the students can ask doubts right now, saying, hey, I should have actually got 2 marks. Why did you give 1.5? So now we will respond back to that as well.
The AI says it.
Yeah, and we will respond back to that. And if they still have a doubt, they can escalate it to the teacher.
But then here I want to ask you to, bring you to one more important aspect of teaching, which also involves very specific child-oriented, child-specific teaching, behavior, some of the other elements that kick in for a teacher. How will AI deal with that? If a particular child, his temperament, his behavior, where do you bring AI there?
So, see, it's a very, very challenging scenario as such. We are not ready there. In my opinion, we are not ready for that yet because we haven't even started scratching the data or even started looking at what kind of data should we actually look at in order to start creating personalized models, or should we even do that? Because it again is more sentimental in nature. Maybe there are some things left to the way it is right now and left to human beings, and maybe this is one aspect. For example, this is one question that we get. How do you grade creative answers?
How do you create?
Creative answers. Say, for example, I'm asking you to write an essay about your trip, your holiday, or whatever it is. Now, there is a creative answer that the kid is going to write. Now, there are 2 aspects. One is the mechanics. Is he writing simple and compound sentences? Is he putting the grammar in properly? All of this is mechanics of an answer. But beyond that, it's creativity. Now, nobody can create great creativity. You can put a number if you want in there, but there's no marks to a creativity, right?
True.
So precisely to answer your question, this will come in, but I am not sure to what extent this is going to come in the near future. I think it's going to take a lot of time. We still have more simpler tasks that we still need to do it perfectly before we jump on in there.
Ganesh, do you see a day when teaching will be completely outsourced to AI? And if at all, what are the challenges in probably achieving that over the next few years?
So I personally believe that will never happen. What we need to do is alternatives. We must have alternatives because there's no one size fits all. I did my BTech at IIT Bombay going back, right? And I was to go to any of the Ivy League universities for my PhD. And a prof actually made a big influence on the decision I made. I stayed back and did a PhD at IIT Bombay. And he asked this very hard-hitting question, what is Indian about Indian Institute of Technology? That nobody asks these hard questions to BTech students, right? And one very good example Professor A.W. Date provided was that technology could be complementary, could be supplementary, or could be substitutional. We seem to see technology from the lens of, I have a solution, show me the problem. Instead, if you lead the landscape, and let me give a simple example, right? Broom. We had a brooming technology, and if you start looking at technology as verb and not as a noun, it makes a big difference. The technology of sweeping. You have a broom, you could have a complementary sleeve into the broom, makes it easy to operate. You had a broom, you actually brought in the tray to make it possible to supplement. Or you also got the vacuum cleaner. Many houses purchase vacuum cleaners and have that broomed, right? So what fit? There's no one size fits all. Whereas in airports, you may actually need the vacuum cleaners. Right. UPI was a very interesting example of complementary / supplementary because it actually saved our savings economy, right? I love the fact that we can use UPI here. I go to the US, I have to carry 4 credit cards. It's crazy, right? I mean, there's no seamlessness. So you can leapfrog by complementing our ecosystem. And therefore, laying alternatives on the floor is very important. I'm actually heading one of the task forces from the Ministry of Education on digital and creative economy. That's exactly what we're doing, laying alternatives. What we have for an artisan could be very different from what we have for a clerk or for a lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. Create courses to lay down how AI could complement, supplement, or in some cases, you may also need to substitute. But let it be an informed decision.
Okay. The minister recently said that we are actually, we need to focus on, building AI and building cutting edge technology. There are a lot of students here. I want to ask you, if someone dreams of having a startup in the field of AI, I'll probably start with Swami. What are some of the challenges that he or she may face if they really have to get started on that path?
Yeah, I can talk on this for like 5 hours in terms of challenges. See, number one is that startup is now a very fancy word, and it's good in a way and a bad in a way as well. And we are seeing a lot of youngsters coming into building startups. That's also great. But what's happening is that there is also a lot of lack of understanding of the domain. You need to soak a lot of time on understanding the domain in which you're going to operate. Without the ontology layer, you might do something very fancy, but it will not really take off. You might get the initial part of investments. You might get the initial, the first few meters will be very easy, but after that you're going to gasp out of breath. So that is probably one of the biggest challenges that they will face is unless and until you have a very clear understanding, and you have to also, it's more decisions, right? It's very decisions that you actually make from time to time. And it's okay to fail, but you don't plan for failure, but do plan for success. But again, if you list down the challenges now, building your models is going to be very expensive. Getting your GPUs is going to be pretty expensive. How are you going to plan for that? If you think that you'll make revenue in 1 year, it's going to take you 4 years. How are you going to plan for that? And you have to put salary every month to all of your employees. How are you going to plan for that? You have to ensure compliance. There is no problem in there. There's a list.
Funding.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when you have to put salary, obviously you need funding because you're not yet making revenue.
Correct.
So, I went to Israel pretty recently, and then they have this startup nation as a concept. Now, what Israel government does is that Israel government funds 50% of these startups. If you're raising 1 crore, the government will fund 50 lakhs. And the 50 lakhs will be funded by any of that particular industry conglomerate. For example, if I'm getting into, bike manufacturing, then TVS or Bajaj can come and fund the remaining 50 lakhs, and the Israeli government will fund the 50 lakhs. Now, when this is actually happening, the speed to the market is pretty fast, and if you fail, you join the first in the line for getting the next startup or the funding for the next startup. Okay. You don't go back towards the line. So failure is actually celebrated in those places. So That's something which is very unique that I saw.
Okay. Ganesh, would you want to add something here?
Yeah, piggyback to what Swami said. What I've learned from my spiritual mentors and what I've also learned, the hard grinding path, is the challenge is the mindset. It's really the mindset that creates challenge. In fact, There was an entire panel discussion during the Forbes Top 30 AI Summit, and I would like to refer you to hear that, where I elaborated on this. Why I say mindset, right? Often we are thinking in binaries. We say AI or no AI. As I said, there are alternatives. There's a middle ground, which is possible to see only when we actually start producing technology.
Right.
We produce the deep tech. That's the reason I brought it up upfront. Right? We need to have alternatives by design, by creating that ecosystem. Even if you look at, Arnab in his opening talked about our parampara. In our parampara in education, we have this very interesting framework called Tantra Yukti. Tantra Yukti offers this 2 elements out of 35 called Purva Paksha and Uttara Paksha, right?
Okay.
So one is to understand what our strengths are. The other is to understand what technology is to offer. We need to excel in both. We have to understand the deep tech. Academia is great. We can do benchmarking. Engineering is great in ensuring that the benchmarks actually make sense, right? That what you have benchmarked will actually be applicable in the real world. We need the industry to come together with academia. We need ministries to come together. I'm so happy that while Department of Science and Technology funded us, the India mission has wholeheartedly adapted what we are doing at BharatJan. So we are all the part of India mission. So working across ministries, working across the different verticals, I think that's where the mindset plays a key role. We need to work together.
Okay. Most of the impressions about AI that we have are ChatGPT or Grok. I want to know where, if at all, we have to look at on a global scale, where is Indian or where are Indian AI systems if we have to really compete with the ChatGPT? Are we behind the ChatGPT?
No, definitely from sovereign models or our own proprietary LLM models, we are definitely behind. But what I'm seeing is that a lot of, for example, we are not a ChatGPT wrapper. So we don't use ChatGPT or a Meta or anything. We have our own models that we have actually created, and we run on those models, and then we have been enhancing those models all through the journey that we have. For example, what BharatJan is doing is exactly the same, but they're doing it at a larger scale. Now, startups, there are certain startups which are specifically working on creating our own models. So those are the startups to be celebrated. But you also need startups who need to consume these models as well. So those are the LLM wrappers, and there will be many startups that will spring up pretty fast, and then which will consume some of the models that has been actually pre-created as well. So in that part, India is definitely lagging behind. But if you see from an education standpoint, because I am visiting schools all across the globe, we are not very far behind. The level of knowledge that we have, the school educators that are in India, they have, and what is there in the global scale is almost the same. The only difference that I actually see is in the adoption curve. So India has always been a service industry until at least the past 10 years. We have always celebrated the Wipros, the TCSs, the Infosys, and for good reason. I'm an ex-Wiproid myself. And we grew up in that journey. Now suddenly last 10 years has been all startups.
Correct.
So the service to product industry transformation is a very key one. And that has happened in the tech sector now, but it will take a little longer for the normal people to understand, okay, now we need not depend on somebody else for all the products. We can still consume the products that is actually built in-house.
Correct.
So that transformation is going to happen. So from that sense, we are lagging behind in certain aspects, but we're not so bad that, oh my God, we have to pull up our socks or something like that. We are there, almost there. We just need a little bit more push, a little bit more support from the government, a little bit more, we have to fund for failure. If I want to put the right word, we have to have failure fund, which says you go and try, but you try honestly. If you fail, it's fine.
Okay.
Right? So like how our PM Modi hugged Dr. Shivan after the failure of our mission. So that's what we need for all the founders. So we can't have our Prime Minister Modi come and hug everyone, but at least a virtual version of him would be really nice. Yeah.
But do you see a day when India will probably, we had the 2000s and the 2010s where we were the service providers of the world. Do you see a day where India becomes the AI capital of the world?
I certainly see the day when India becomes the
When do
capital.
you think that will happen?
So there are two things. I'll go back, build upon what he said, right? When we talk about benchmarking, are we behind, right? Certainly from a scale perspective, I see we are behind. From quality perspective, no. And this certainly pivoted on my BharatJan experience. We have very high quality, small parameter foundational models based on the compute we could get. multilingual models, speech, we are topping the charts. So it's possible that actually the necessity, when it becomes the mother of invention, we have dearth of compute, you do data efficient, compute efficient learning. However, in terms of scale, both in terms of the funding that is required to reach there, as well as in terms of the GPU, right, the compute availability in the infra, we are certainly behind. And it's good to acknowledge, rather than have a 0-1 view, good to acknowledge fronts where we are behind so that we can actually ramp up. Coming back to where do I envisage we going? Honestly, for me, the vision is India's use case capital tag is leveraged to become IP producers. And that's what we should do.
Right.
We have done that in fintech for certainly. We need to do that. And I think education also, we are pretty much, the fact that there's still a lot of interaction with the children in India, unlike many of the other countries. And there's the NEP, for example, has brought in multifaceted learning. So there is creative thinking here. How do you leverage that to also grow our deep technology stack and become IP producers? I think that's a challenge. If we take that as a priority and have that mindset, I think the future is very bright.
So do you think there's a certain amount of or a certain level of resistance in adopting AI? Like parents, for example, I'm not too sure if they are okay. I am not too sure if I am okay if my child goes to a school where there's completely AI teaching. Is there a problem with acceptance?
So first thing is, my opinion is that you will never have a school that will be completely AI. So that's not going to be there in the near future because you have a lot of guardrails. For example, if you take a CBSE school, CBSE has a norm that if you have so many number of students, you have to have so many number of teachers. So humans are not going to be replaced. I'll tell you what happens in the scenario is that you have 205 working days in a school year. Mm-hmm. And if you see any of the analysis reports, we did a VSM ourselves, value stream mapping, going and understanding what a teacher does in a day. We did this for about a month for about 20 teachers teaching different classes. What we understood was very simply, 40% of their time goes into correcting homeworks, correcting answer papers, inputting those marks into Excel sheets, creating charts for parents-teachers meeting, creating, say, you will have a Holi event, then there will be some Rangoli, then there are some teachers who are going and making that Rangoli thing along with the students. And then, like this, a lot of administrative tasks. 40% of their time. So that's a huge amount of time. So we are saying around 80 days is gone for these activities.
These activities.
Yeah, and now if you see this, now can AI reduce that 80 days and give back 40 days back to them and say, now you go and spend time with your children, with the school children. Now, because students want to discuss and debate, I mean, even if your daughter or son or my kids, they want to come and discuss and debate. They don't ask very, say a remembering question to you or just a understanding question to you.
Correct.
They ask very analytical. The thought process is already higher order thinking skill. They're like, okay, why this and this? Why not this? Now, and for this, the teacher also needs to go and work and start, doing a little bit of soul searching, little bit of upgradation. He or she also needs a lot of time.
Correct.
Right? And that time can be given by AI. When AI comes and does some of the the tasks that can be automated by AI, then they get the time. So they can work on improving and then starting to engage with students better. So that's what we need more. Because with mobile, I saw a recent video in which the online presence just took a complete up, and then it was none in 1934, and suddenly we are all spending more time on mobile than with our family, than with our friends, than with anybody, right? So that's in that era, probably we need to save time so that you can still go and be with the children.
Ganesh, you have any thoughts on
Yes, thanks for bringing this up. One of the exercises we undertook at IIT Bombay, right? Since I'm a faculty, we also teach, right?
Yeah.
So we have this very large, massive computer programming courses, right? And we built out an open source platform for grading, auto grading. While co-pilots exist, GitHub as a co-pilot, you can actually use it to write code. Come to analysis of code, comprehending code, and grading code. I'll tell you, LLM is far from there. And part of the reason, obviously, is also the tokenization, which I talked about. The many other aspects, the provenance through the entire process. See, comprehending code is basically like finding a needle in a haystack. That's one reason why this code isn't correct. Probably is producing the same output for your 10 use cases. That needle in a haystack problem is still far from solved. And what we found helps is basically human in the loop, right? What does human bring in here? When it comes to computer programs, the syntactic knowledge. If you look at the way programs are analyzed using structures, abstract syntax trees, or data flow graphs, it's actually a lot of domain knowledge. In fact, even if you had a co-pilot which tries to help make sense of the program, you'll need some guided questioning. So in fact, we have a paper called guided questioning, right? That guided questioning is a combination of domain knowledge from the human and the recall capability of the LLM.
Correct.
So very clearly, there are many spaces where human and machines have to collaborate. And I would insist that the sooner we can bring this comprehension capability, right? Metrics for comprehension, even in the process of generating, which AI just does seemingly very well, the more we can understand that the students who are probably falling prey to AI are also kind of guided. I think that's a very good keyword Arnab brought up in his opening. Are guided towards ensuring that they are comprehending as they consume AI.
Right.
So this was a very interesting experience. As one example, right? If I'm grading programs, a frequentist approach, which just predicts the most common grade. Let's say the most common grade is a BB. A frequentist approach of giving the most common grade often outperforms the AI model.
Right.
Why? Because comprehension is still not in the genes, right, of all AI models. So that is a big
Some
gap.
of the part that you're talking right now is still entering the rocket science bit, but then I still want to, both of you mentioned about failures being an important element. Now, failures, especially in cutting-edge technology like AI, are expensive. I mean, if we were talking, and you said it's close to about 3 to 4 years to build, and do you think the investors in India or the incubators ecosystem that we have in India, is that patient enough to wait for whoever here probably wants to have an AI startup? Do they have the money? Do they have the patience? To both of you, this question actually.
So I will see from resonating from this, right? Education so based on my experience, education or edtech startups went through a lot of ruffle in the last 3 years. I don't want to mention names, but we know the reason why there was when you say you're an edtech startup, you were actually looked down. Okay, I don't want to invest into education because no matter what. At one point in time, every day there was a news. Okay, this education startup raised 1 billion.
There was another Byju's which has failed.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So it's not only that, there are still multitude of other startups that have actually failed because all of them were looking at probably B2C as a market and so on and so forth and probably misjudged various reasons. So we don't want to get into that. But are incubators really playing the role of incubators in India is a very strong question that I actually want to ask to them, because it is not about conducting events. It is more core than that. It is more minute than that. So are the incubators really doing that is the number one question. Number two is that the appetite for investing and waiting, at least in India, it's very low. So they all of them look at probably a 3 to 4 year exit. Whereas if you go to US or if you go to Europe, or the timeline is okay, now let's set it up at 8 years and let me help you do it for 8 years.
Okay.
So that is definitely a mindset that has to actually change. And I think it is already, people are understanding. I think there are a few, at least VC houses, a few houses which are saying, okay, we don't want to look at anything short term, we want to look at only long term. If you have a long term and a deep tech product, come to us. So this is even being told by them very specifically. So today, if we need to be that champion, if we need to India needs to be an AI leader, then we definitely need a lot of these incubators and a lot of these investment firms which are more focused on long term rather than short term. That's why I brought in the Israel story, the story as well on why maybe a government push is also required, because we also need to see how the schemes like CGTMSC, which is saying which will offer 10,000 crore in debt funding to startups. How is it actually working on the ground? Is it really getting implemented for deep tech startups? How is it going? So probably some statistical survey there, all of those is really going to help us in kind of pushing this needle forward.
So besides the technical know-how, we actually need an ecosystem that nurtures.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts? Any?
What I would also request is the next generation, as has been done by several others, to really become very hungry to learn. I think that's very keen. Your appetite to learn. It's not just about learning ML. Please understand that the technology is going to change. Your appetite to learn, to adapt, to be able to apply ML and bring in your respective domain knowledge is going to be the differentiator. I think domain expertise, quack work is going to stop. You'll need to be really good domain experts, right? So that's my call. Just don't be a master of all trades. You start becoming a master of some trades at least, right? Jack of all trades. Become master of few at least. And in that process, develop empathy, respect for other areas so that you can collaborate. Because you can't be working in silo. If we do that, government is certainly opening up avenues. There could be more that could be done. ANRF has been a great scheme. But I'm sure there will be many more which empower VCs as VC funding as well from the government side. If the company is also raised to the occasion, I think Indian R&D sector from industrial front also needs to step up, frankly, with AI.
Absolutely.
So if the two step up, and the next generation doesn't just succumb to this AI wave, but also appreciates domain knowledge, I think the two can make a big difference.
And the whole fear of AI, if at all, that it's going to take my job away, if you could just...
If I want to chime into what Ganesh said, I will say one of the requests that we will actually put forth, since we are in the media house, we can always put it forth to the finance minister, is that maybe build a startup bank. So we don't want to go to any of the private banks. Let's have a startup bank which focuses on startup and scale up. And that will understand the best needs of the startup, and then you have all the documentation done and all the legal processes done. That clears a lot of way, because especially for R&D, if you need to spend on R&D, real R&D, core R&D, that's a lot of fund that's actually required to do. And that support, if that comes through, then easy for us to become that AI leader pretty soon. And if you keep trying, there is no other way but you will succeed, right? If there are multiple people who are trying on something again and again, and if they are being funded enough, then there is no other way that you will not get success. There's no chance.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I'll open the house for questions, if at all there are any. I see one there. Mike.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful insight. My question to you is, we are talking about AI here, especially in terms of education. So do you think AI would help us, like students specifically, to build their confidence as well in public speaking and to tackle their stage fright as well?
Yeah, so absolutely yes. So there are a lot of training models that is actually, I think some organizations already have video to speech, and they comprehend it. They kind of train you on, okay, how many fillers are you actually using in your public speaking? And is your sentence coherence okay? Do you have to give pauses in between your sentences? All of this is actually being measured right now. There are a few applications that's actually there, which is actually doing it right now as we speak. As long as public fear is concerned, you have to go to the stage and speak multiple times. AI can't help you there. Maybe it can augment it, but it's still augmentation. I think you find opportunities and the willpower to go and conquer public fear. So this is one place where AI can't help you.
So you agree with the fact that AI cannot reach anywhere as the human can?
Yeah, we are creating AI, right? We are superior to AI. Why do you have a doubt in that?
Thank you so much, sir. That's
I just want to add to that. Please use AI to complement, is my appeal, right? The moment we surrender, then the problem is we stop thinking, right? So even when an AI tool analyzes your speech, become inquisitive. What are the parameters? What's the prosody? Is it the pitch? I mean, start inquiring into what are the elements of speech that it might be analyzing. You will learn a lot about speech technology, right? So use AI to give a multiplicative factor or an exponentiating factor to your learning. But you must learn. You must learn.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, when AI is increasing day by day, then some student going to IT sector, then some effects will be conduct on unemployment.
So are you asking if AI is used every day, will there be unemployment in IT sector? So, okay, this is again code gen. So we had today when I was coming down to Delhi, so I had to sit next to the CTO of L&T, Mindtree, and we were discussing exactly about how code gen tools are actually being used today in order to replace the developers or replace the coders as such. Now, can it do a fantastic job? Yet, it is still in question. It is still the power of the person who actually knows how to use it. If you're just using it for, say, for example, go to ChatGPT and create a small snippet and copy paste that in your code, and then you want that to be used, probably that's not the best approach at all. So if you're doing that, probably you will have problem with getting a job. But if you really understand why it's doing it and understand the basics, get your basics and foundation strong, then AI is, again, as Ganesh said, it's only going to complement you. It's not going to supplement you or replace you at all. It's only going to complement you, as long as you are also equipped with at least some of the knowledge and tool sets.
I'll go back to a comprehension exercise in our institute, which you found difficult to understand, right? I mean, when people submit programming assignments, what is interesting is that a random guess, that's what I meant, at a random guess that this code is average, performs better than most AI models' analysis of that program. Did I make sense? Now look at this. So comprehension of what is written is still not there in AI. That the onus is on you, right? So use AI as a tool, as I said earlier, and ensure that your comprehension increases, because unless you comprehend, you can't innovate. You'll be stuck with what it is feeding into you. Please understand, it will be recolonization. We cannot be recolonized.
Wonderful. Okay, on that note, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. It was lovely.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that scintillating conversation. And up next, get up for another such exciting session, in fact, with Mr. Kapil Awasthi. He is the co-founder of Purple Synapse, one of Asia's most advanced cyber research, simulation and education platform. And leading this conversation will be Mr. Abhishek Kapoor, Senior Executive Editor at Republic TV Media Network. With a round of applause, welcome them on the stage.